Welcome to another journey through history. Today, we embark on an exploration of a topic that has shaped societies for millennia, that is, women's rights. From the ancient civilizations of Greece, Rome, and Egypt to the modern world, the role of women has evolved dramatically. But how were women treated in these societies? What rights did they have, and how did they compare to each other? And how does this contrast with the rights women have today? Let's uncover the story of women's rights from the ancient past to the present. In the world of ancient Greece, women were largely confined to their homes. In Athens, a woman's role was centered around the household. She was expected to manage domestic affairs, bear children, and remain obedient to her husband. Education for women was rare, and they had no political voice. Athenian democracy, though celebrated, was only for men. Women could not vote, don't own property independently, and can't take part in public decision-making. However, in Sparta, things were different. Spartan women had more freedom compared to their Athenian counterparts. They were encouraged to exercise, own property, and even manage estates while men were away at war. They were respected as mothers of warriors, but their role was still tied to serving the state's interests rather than personal autonomy. The Roman world offered a mixed experience. Early in the Roman Republic, women had very few rights, much like in Greece. They were under the authority of their fathers or husbands and had little legal standing. However, as Rome expanded and evolved, women in the later Republic and Empire gained more influence. Wealthy Roman women could own property, run businesses, and even exert political influence behind the scenes. For instance, Livia, the wife of Emperor Augustus, wielded considerable power indirectly. Yet, they were still excluded from direct political participation. Roman women had more legal protections compared to Greek women, but full equality remained out of reach. In contrast, ancient Egyptian women enjoyed a level of independence that was rare for the time. They could own and inherit property, run businesses, and take legal action without needing male approval. Some even ruled as pharaohs, such as Hatshepsut and Cleopatra. Unlike in Greece and Rome, Egyptian women had legal equality to men in many aspects of life. This was partly because Egyptian society valued stability and practicality over rigid gender roles. However, even in this seemingly progressive system, women were still expected to fulfill traditional roles as wives and mothers, and their influence remained limited in the highest levels of government and priesthood. Moving beyond these well-known civilizations, societies around the world had their own approaches to women's rights. In many parts of Asia, such as China and India, women's roles were often shaped by deep-rooted traditions. In China, Confucian values emphasized obedience to fathers, husbands, and sons. Women were expected to remain modest and submissive. Foot binding, a practice that emerged later, symbolized this control over women's mobility and independence. In India, women's status varied widely depending on the time period and region. Ancient texts like the Vedas mention women, who were scholars and even warriors, but over time, restrictive customs like child marriage and the practice of sati, where widows were expected to self-immolate, became prevalent. As time progressed, the Middle Ages saw women's rights further constrained in many parts of the world. In medieval Europe, women were legally and socially subordinate to men. Noble women had some influence, particularly as regents or advisors, but most women lived under strict gender roles. However, there were exceptions, such as powerful queens like Eleanor of Aquitaine, who played major roles in politics. In the Islamic world, women's rights varied. In some areas, women had legal rights in marriage, divorce, and property ownership, but cultural practices often restricted their freedom. The fight for women's rights took a significant turn in the modern era. The Enlightenment brought new ideas about equality and individual rights, leading women to question their traditional roles. By the 19th and early 20th centuries, women's suffrage movements gained momentum, particularly in the United States, Britain, and other parts of the world. The right to vote was one of the earliest victories, but the struggle continued for workplace rights, education, and legal equality. The feminist movements of the 20th century pushed for greater representation, reproductive rights, and protection against discrimination. Laws were passed granting women equal pay, the right to work in various professions, and protection from domestic violence. Today, women's rights continue to evolve. Many countries have laws promoting gender equality, but challenges remain. In some parts of the world, women still face restrictions on education, employment, and personal freedom. Issues such as wage gaps, gender-based violence, and political underrepresentation persist. However, the progress made over the centuries is undeniable. Women now hold leadership positions, influence policy, and drive societal change like never before. The history of women's rights is a testament to resilience and the ongoing pursuit of justice. From the restrictions of ancient Greece to the relative freedoms of Egypt, from the patriarchal structures of Rome to the movements for equality in the modern world, this journey reflects humanity's evolving understanding of fairness and dignity. What are your thoughts on how far we have come, and what more needs to be done? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more stories from the past. See you in the next one.